conference. Please announce yourself.
Chief Daigle.
Hello, hello. Broadcasting live from AFRS.
So we're gonna let a few people get on. We had some technical difficulties, guys. Just bear with us for a few seconds, and we'll get started.
Hope everyone's having a good Monday. No calls from potential cancellations. I don't miss that. So we're here for the February edition of the AFRS Top 3 Mentorship Session of the month. We're here with Chief Master Sergeant Kevin Daigle from the 344th Training Squadron, where our recruiting school is held. He is the Chief Enlisted Manager out there. He's here today with us to answer some questions that the field had regarding, just total force initiatives, the flight chief course, and just some overall changes in AFRS. So we're going to give some people a few moments to get on, since it gave us a second to get on. It is still early, Sergeant Cohen, I know that. But I know your squadron won't have any problems. So as we're going through the mentor session, we do have some questions that were pre-populated that had some interest. But if you happen to have another question related to the topic, please feel free to add that on as we're going along. And also you can send that question afterwards. We can always answer that back. Chief is available all the time, 24/7. I can give you all his contact information if you need it.
Always, any questions you have we missed today, hit us up on this thread, and I'll do my best to get back and get you guys an answer. And if I'm not fast enough for you, Sergeant Cohen, you can go ahead and send out an email.
And it's been a minute since I've been in production, so I don't really know the rules about ship day, what we can and can't talk about. Welcome, Sar Hurley. How you doing? Long time no see. I still don't see you, because I can only see me. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. That way, anyone watching now, we're using your time and then wisely. And then anyone else, please feel free to watch the video later or ask any questions you may have at a later date. So, again, like I said, welcome to the February edition of the Air Force Top 3 Mentorship Session with Chief Master Sergeant Daigle, Chief Enlisted Manager of the 344 Training Squadron. The field had a lot of questions about changes in AFRS and some things happening over on the training side, so we're going to get started with that. So, Chief, Friday was a big day for Air Force Recruiting Service and the Total Force course that came online. The first course graduated on Friday, so congratulations to those students and the instructors that got them across. But can you tell us a little about the creation and implementation of the Total Force Recruiting course?
Okay, so Total Force in November of 2017, Secretary of the Air Force got wind that recruiting service was one of the last Air Force specialties to not integrate with this Total Force. So this was kind of the directive was given down to get together and see if it would work. So multiple people, I think we had 24 people in the room at one time, including CFMs, MFMs, SMEs from all different components, sat down in a room, and we pulled up the CJQS, and we looked at what tasks were we building recruiters to do. So from that point, we sat down and we kind of made a dream list. Like, what is the perfect 3 level look like coming out of tech training? So from there, kind of each one of us, of course, we all had at that point in time, we had kind of different constructs and organizations and different ability levels that we required for our members to come out of. So we kind of sat down, we threw everything on the wall. We were we were locked in a room for about a week. And we finally came up with the perfect, what Total Force would look like. And then from there, the team, including, Master Sergeant Laura, led by Master Sergeant Laura at the schoolhouse, started working on the curriculum. So this was not something that was just put together in a closet, right? So we had our guard counterparts and our reserve counterparts, as well as active duty, sit down and we kind of looked at every single task that a recruiter was required to do. So I'll use telephone prospecting, for instance, right? We want to teach them telephone prospecting. So we looked at all the different ways that each component taught how to do it. Then from that point, the members came to a consensus and said, you know what, this is better than what we do, or we don't do it as thoroughly here. And we built the ultimate coursework to perfect the task at hand. Now, once that was all done, is when it took right about a year, and of course we implemented it, and it was January 4th we started the first Total Force class.
So, Chief, what are some of the similarities and differences that we kind of came across between all three components? I know that was one of the biggest things in the beginning. It's like, well, we're so different. How are we going to pull this off? So now that it's kind of already been created, implemented, and a class graduated, what do you think are some of the major similarities or differences between the three components when it comes to recruiting practices or training?
So I would kind of compare us all to three different Mercedes-Benz dealerships, right?
I like that, Mercedes.
Mercedes, we're very high end. But you look at what we do and what we offer, we like to say we're different, but when you really started peeling back everything and actually looking at the fundamentals and the practices that we utilize, we're really the same. So at first, of course, the first halt was, well, we're different because I'm a guard component, I'm a reserve component, I'm an active duty component, we're different. Mm-hmm. While some of the benefits differ, the process of getting to yes and closing a sale is the same. I mean, we already utilize the same sales platform, with the Brooks Group and Impact Selling. So it was really a lot of just learning about each other. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that came out of it, was sitting down with everybody in the room and looking eye to eye and saying, you know what, we're really the same.
Well, with that being the same, what do you think has been the ultimate, especially within the schoolhouse, has been the biggest culture shift since we implemented the course? And now, within each classroom, we have a mixture of guard, reserve, and active duty now training together. Just what do you see with the change in culture within the schoolhouse itself and what that looks like beyond the schoolhouse?
Well, Total Force Initiative is a pretty big change, and the schoolhouse, of course, being on the front end of it and kind of implementing and bringing them together as one. I think that the culture of when the new recruiters get to you is already going to be there, and the culture we want to build is one of sharing. We all have to remember at the end of the day, we're all the United States Air Force, and the ultimate goal is to make sure that we make manpower for the United States Air Force. We talk about talent management, talent acquisition, getting the right airmen to the right place. I really think that us working together and building those relationships as early on as possible, as well as our top three and our senior leaders out there supporting these airmen, I think is really what's going to shift the culture and make the United States Air Force better, not just each component. So
you brought up manning and manpower. So what is your perspective on how Total Force actually affects manning?
So I don't think that Total Force is going to impact manning as we would hope it would, meaning like let's absorb the reserves and now all of a sudden we have 400 additional recruiters. It's not going to work like that because they still have missions that they're carrying. So, the reserves is still on goal for 9,000 this year, and they have, I think, 300 plus recruiters. So I think the manpower piece is still going to be where we're at. I think it's kind of more of us helping each other and sharing, and really Total Force is about the warm handoff. It's about when you meet Johnny and he walks in your office and he tells you that, look, I want to get out of town. Well, he's probably going to be a really good, either a criminal or he's going to be a really good active duty applicant. And if Johnny comes in and says, look, I'm tied to this town, but I still want to serve my country, then the reserves of the Guard may be a good avenue for them to take.
Great. So with kind of looking at the manning piece, budgeting, how are we looking will Total Force affect the budget as a whole?
So I don't know if it'll affect our budget. And I mean, of course, those are questions that, are going to be solved way up. But I think that we're going to do better financially and make better financial decisions by combining. I mean, everyone that's watching this or everyone that's going to watch this has been to an event where you have active duty and a guard and a reserve component recruiter. We paid for 3 booths. We advertised for 3 different components. So there's a lot of waste there, and I think that us combining and building those relationships with our sister components are going to help us better utilize our funding and making sure that we're in more places. And financially, I think it's better. What it's going to bring, how much money it's going to bring in, hopefully it's a lot.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So is there anything that AFRS leaders or anyone within AFRS can do, because even at the lowest level, can do in preparation for Total Force and this Total Force initiative? Now that our recruiters are graduating with that Total Force mindset, how can leaders out in the field kind of reinforce that mindset?
So, great question, because it's as long as I've been in the Air Force, there's been change, and this is one of those changes that we can sit in and we can be the early adopters and say, okay, how do we make this work? Or we can be the laggers and say this is not going to work. And I think for it to work, it's going to take our senior leaders, our leadership teams, our top 3 to embrace these airmen, and let's work at building the relationships with our sister components and to make it work. It's going to take frequent communication, and it's going to take us embracing that we're in a culture of change, and it's for the better. It's how do we make the United States Air Force a better component, not how do we make my active duty component or my reserve component or my guard component better.
Great. So rumor has it, along with the Total Force course, now that there's the Flight Chief course is moving over from AFRS headquarters over to the 344 Training Squadron with the recruiting schoolhouse. Can you tell us a little bit about the reason behind the move?
So I was here in AFRS in 2012, and I was here along with Chief Snyder, our CFM, Chief Jackson, who's a soup out in the 72nd Group, Chief Lane, the 69th Group soup, and we all taught the Flight Chief workshop here at Recruiting Service. And I think we all had the same complaints as we were trying to teach it. So we had an agenda and we had topics. And depending on who you got and their experience level in that topic is the lesson you got. So that was the majority of the complaints we get at the end of course survey. So the idea of bringing it to the 344 Training Squadron and the recruiting school was to formalize it. And then, in the ATC world, in the tech training world, you have your plan of instruction, your lesson plans, very detailed, very specific. And when you teach a topic, it's not of my experience. It's actually of what's in the lesson plan to teach on the topic. So the idea was to bring it to tech training and standardize it, make it official, make it where you get CCF credits, make it where, like any other 7-level school, it's a go no go situation. So, kind of the process is going to change a little bit. First class will start April 29th, and it's going to be kind of a cultural shift again. You'll be nominated to be a flight chief, and then at that point in time, you'll get a RIP from Air Education Training Command that will get you to our flight chief school. So the course right now is 3 weeks. We sat down again to build this course with our senior leaders in recruiting service. It was a group of 10 chiefs. We had some flight chiefs. We had some sitting pro soups out there, every different experience level. Some Tier 3B senior trainers, and to really dig into what we wanted to train and at what level we wanted to train it. We took what they were already doing, kind of standardized it in a sense of what needs to be taught of each task, sent it up through the course resource estimate process through ATC, and it came back that 3 weeks. It took 3 weeks to train what we were trying to train at 2 weeks in the workshop. So right there, by taking the ownership at the ATC level and taking it off of AFRS, we're going to give it the due diligence and training, the time that it deserves to make sure that we're training at the right level.
Awesome. So what are some of the major differences between the Flight Chief workshop and the Flight Chief course, other than maybe there is going to be accreditation that comes along with the time difference, but is there any kind of evaluations that are different? Are we looking at as far as trying to get them, because currently I know right now there's flight chiefs that attend the workshop that are maybe already sitting in that flight chief position? Is there any changes coming in that regard?
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of changes there. So, and I was alluding to it earlier, and I'll come back to it. So, once you're nominated to be a flight chief, ATC will send you a RIP for flight chief school. At that point in time, you'll come through the 3-week course. From the three-week course, there's multiple labs. Right now, we have 2 separate labs. We're going to have a office visit lab and then a feedback and performance counseling lab. So those 2 things right there are go, no go, as well as there's a few tests, and there's numerous group breakouts as far as how to work scenarios in different situations. So it being an ATC course actually puts the ownership back at ATC level, whether go or no go. From that point, once you get a go and you're good, you pass the school, which will kind of be a 7-level experience. Then from there, you'll get your assignment to be a flight chief.
Awesome. So with all these changes coming in AFRS and at the schoolhouse with training and just total force, and what critical role can the Air Force Recruiting Service top 3 organization play to facilitate these changes, and how can they specifically impact or assist in making this work?
So that's a great question, and I think it takes all of our senior leadership, our top 3. It takes us embracing this change that's coming. From what I've seen and I'm watching right now, we have about 7 classes on board at the schoolhouse, and watching them interact, it's flawless. It's just like I remember as a young maintainer, working with the reserves and the Guard. It's going to take us to embrace it and help guide them to make sure that if they are getting the message to build the relationships. It's the warm handoff. How do we get this airman in the United States Air Force versus how do I get this airman in my component? I can remember from years ago, of course, it's been Stone Ages since I was a recruiter, like probably about 6 months. Guy come in and he didn't want to leave, and it was like, well, the reserve's 3 streets down, take a left, second door on your right. But creating that warm handoff, having an understanding of how our sister service components work, so that whenever he asks the question, we can at least give him a little bit of the information as we do the warm handoff with the right component. And our sister components will do the same with us.
Great. We actually have a question
Wow.
from out in the field from Sergeant Emmons.
Okay.
It's what if flight chiefs get a no-go when they get during the flight chief course? Will they be rolled out an extra week, or what's the result of that?
So, kind of what we do right now in the Total Force recruiting class, if you fail an assessment, it's not an automatic you're going home. Of course, a few things will be looked at. We'll really have to make a character assessment. Is this person ready for this position? Is this person ready for this level of expertise? Is there something that we missed? And right now, we usually give them 1, maybe 2 if they're really, really trying really hard. 2 refires, but there'll be a point where if they get given a no-go, it's just going to be a what we call a 125A, a dismissal from the course. Will be sent to ATC, and then that case will be worked with between ATC and RSX here at AFRS.
So hopefully that answers the question that you're looking for there. Ultimately, the goal of the flight chief course is to make sure that the field is nominating the right people at the right time, so that we can make sure that those things don't happen. But ultimately, it's an ATC environment. So
yeah, the course by all means is not built to get people to fail out.
Absolutely not.
Our ultimate goal is to get people to the flight chief level, but I want to make sure we give you all the right tools versus this is my scenario and situation that I lived through, and I can tell you about my horror stories and my war stories. I want to actually give you some meat and potatoes. I want you to understand really what Flow and Trend is and how Flow and Trend works, not just that it's a great product.
Absolutely, and those are some of the things that we're trying to incorporate into this new flight chief course, just to go a little bit more in depth with things like writing expectations, reviewing expectations, actually getting into AFRIS and getting into documents and reports and understanding how to analyze them to give a proper office visit, to actually know what you're looking at. Because the assumption is that we've all at some point had that opportunity, but it may not be there. So we're kind of going to go a little bit more in depth with these things and give more of an opportunity for individual performance. So where there will be group scenarios and group things going on, there's more opportunity for individuals to do exercises on their own, be evaluated on their own, and actually hopefully leave the flight chief course with a better understanding that when they get out to the field, where they may not have their pro suit there immediately or someone there immediately to stand by them, they could start serving that flight chief position as soon as they get there.
So the schoolhouse has recently invested real close to $1 million in technology. So the flight chief room that they're building, it's going to be a smart classroom, meaning we're putting Wi-Fi throughout the building. You'll have tablets you take home with you, and the tablets are kind of interactive. So every night you'll kind of have a little bit of homework to do, maybe 10 to 20 questions. When you come back, it's automatically going to connect with the classroom and the instructor, so the instructor can kind of gauge it. You know, is the lesson I taught yesterday, did it really stick, or did I miss something? And we can go back. We just integrated Blackboard into all of our classes, so you're more now. We got out of the Vietnam era, the paper book and highlighters, and you're actually logged in. You're going through discussion questions. You're having a different interaction versus just memory. New camera systems, so we're recording all the labs, and then your lab, you'll be able to go back. It'll be loaded in your Blackboard. You'll be able to watch it, so you can get that kind of self-critique to say, okay, this is the critique and the feedback the instructor gave to me, and then this is what I see from the entire situation, and I can see where this meets or this doesn't meet, whatever. So a lot of money being put into recruiting school, the flight chiefs. Also think about, you're going to have interaction with the new recruiters, and these are the guys that the flight chiefs are going to be supervising out in the field. So what a better time to actually, you got to give somebody feedback than it to be a brand new student who's really having trouble grasping the information. So again, the school is not built just to check a box and say, hey, you're a flight chief now. It's actually to give you some good, viable experiences so that you can tie them back and use them whenever you get to your flight.
Great. Is there any other questions from out in the field? We'll give it a minute.
You're amazing, Master Sergeant Laura.
That is a statement. The question again. I got to click on it. My apologies. For new recruiters going through the schoolhouse, is there any plan to add more training on appointment to DEP process, step-by-step on administration process, continuing to get feedback from new recruiters that wish they had more on that?
Yeah, so I said last year's senior leadership conference, I had a very similar question. And kind of what we run into with this, who was the question from?
Sergeant Emmons.
Sergeant Emmons. So the issue we run into is I have 33 days with them to teach them from knowing nothing to being able to walk, right? And then whenever you start looking at the admin process, we have 65 different MEPs. So the admin process varies differently between each MEPs when it comes to that piece. Now the piece coming through AFRIS, I mean, we do teach that, and if they're having problems with that, then maybe that's some good feedback that we can take back and kind of tweak the instruction. But I know at this point we're pretty thorough when it comes down to the admin. I think they built 3 case files throughout their time there, and they take an applicant from the prospecting portion all the way through DEP. So we walk them step by step through the entire process. Sergeant Taylor, do you see this change to spread the other Tier 2 positions?
Are you speaking with regards to the training within the schoolhouse? I know, did that question come prior to?
Yeah.
I think.
Elaborate for us, Cindy.
Elaborate. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Wait for it. And kind of getting back to the depth thing, so that one of the things that we struggle with as far as at the AATC level is just we have to keep something standardized. So some of the things, the nuances of differences in squadrons and MEPs, those aren't things that we can necessarily train to. So sometimes when the recruiters get to the field, that's when they are integrated with those nuances. And where we'd like to teach them that here at the schoolhouse, sometimes it's difficult.
Yeah.
HP marketing training.
Oh, do you see this change to spread to other tier 2?
Gotcha.
So, yes, great question, Cindy. So we are looking. I've been working with Chief Mako on this, and as I start, my transition out to the 331st Recruiting Squadron here in April, Senior Master Sergeant Martinez and Master Sergeant Laura will be working with the AFRS training team to figure out how do we create that training exactly. How do we maybe it's, and again, I'm speculating, I'm throwing to the wall right now, but maybe it's just an advanced sales course that, HP and LO and our special warfare go to. Maybe it's an operations training that our ops guys and our MEPs come to. So you're spot on. The real intent is to make sure that we're giving good, standardized training to make sure everybody's getting the same experience. As far as knowledge-wise, not this is Chief Daigle's experience, and this is how it was when I was a flight chief.
Does that help to answer your question, Sergeant Taylor?
And with that, Sergeant Laura just wrote down, something project we've been working on was it's called 8R University, 8RU. I'm sure everybody's heard the word continuum of learning quite a bit. So as ATC adopts this continuum of learning, we're looking at 8RU with the availability of the camera systems and the availability of the experience we have here in San Antonio from every level, is building kind of a database, a library of things to do and how to do them. I think about my days back in 2017 when I was a recruiter. How to do a classroom presentation and how nerve-wracking it was, and what do you do the classroom presentation on? But having maybe a database on Ricky where a new recruiter can go in and type classroom presentation, and it's populated with 10 or 15 ideas that they can watch and turn it and make it their own.
And hopefully use it as a tool so while students are coming through the schoolhouse, flight chiefs out in the field have somewhere to access potentially how we issue report cards. Our goal is not just a paper report card, but maybe a video report card of, they struggle with the meet step, they struggle with the probe step, and they can actually view their videos from start to finish from the schoolhouse to give specific targeted training to that recruiter rather than kind of cookie cutter training that would fit any recruiter that may not specifically hit what that recruiter needs at that time. So those are some things that we're looking for. If there's no more questions in the field, we're gonna close up.
Like I say, guys, if you have any questions, you can jot them down in the comment section here. I'll come back. I'll do my best to answer them. I really hope that we were helpful. What can we in the field do to assist you all at the schoolhouse? Feedback, guys. That's the biggest part. We go to a senior leader conference twice a year, and usually the feedback we get is, can you send us some 7 levels? I would love to. If AATC would fund me at that level, I would love to send you all 7 levels. But just give us the feedback. Simply as the feedback a while ago about the admin section. We'll look at it. If you can give me the details of what they're missing, we'll peel it apart. And we don't just do it in a closet. It's not just just instructors. We like to reach out to the field. And we like to have SMEs as well, kind of give us that viewpoint of what's going on at this point in time in the command versus what happened whenever I was a recruiter last week. So I appreciate that, Sergeant Cohn. But I was saying, if you guys have any other questions, hit us up in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. My email, kevin.daigle.1. Sergeant Laura's email, dara.laura. I appreciate the time to talk to you guys today about this exciting opportunity we're about to embrace with the Air National Guard and the reserves. And one piece I completely left out was they have an integration. They're putting an integration cell here at AFRS, so you'll have the reserves and Guard integrating not only with RSI as they do right now with AFRS, but they'll be coming into training. The deputy commander for Air Force Recruiting Service just was selected, and it's a 1-star from the Air Force Reserve component. So a lot of big changes you'll be seeing. We're joining the rest of the Air Force in the TFI initiative.
So So what's the best way to give feedback on the course? I would say right now, currently myself and Master Sergeant Burgess, we're the flight chiefs out at the schoolhouse, and we're an email or a phone call away. Our goal is anything that we can do to make the course the most effective. The changes that we can make within that fall within the rules of AATC, we are more than happy to make. You know, we have to be mindful that we can't just focus on those changes that only benefit active duty. We only have 33 days with them, but anything that we can add and can change, you know, our instructors, we're getting new instructors in, so the great thing about that is we're getting people that had just left the field, so they have that great experience. But we do have, while we have great recruiters on the staff and great instructors on the staff, some of us haven't been in the field for a year. So that, you know, changes come fast in recruiting. So anything that you can shed light on that changes within AFRS or changes within processes, let us know, because even if it's something specific to your unit, we may find that it's not. But please hit us up on email, hit us up, phone call, however, that way we can find out what it is, find out if there's some way we can facilitate that change immediately or as fast as possible, so that we're training the recruiters on how things are now.
There's also the Recruiting School Facebook page. You can hit us up on there on Messenger. It's pretty
Absolutely.
active as well. It's pretty active as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for a great question.
Yep, I appreciate you guys today. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Like I said, if you got any questions, hit them up in the comments, and we'll catch up with you guys later. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a great day.